longer meaningful answers which should be convincing, because it's a very important issue. It's the most fundamental issue in every religion. And you want just a small comment on this. Why should I waste my time and your time? On this issue, I have spoken before repeatedly in my question answer sessions, and some of my observations have also been printed now in a small book addressed for children, which is Our God, or what is the title of that book? No. A book on God, on the subject of God, which deals with this issue as well, to a degree. Okay. So you can have access to that small booklet, which is meant for children, but because actually it is written by a committee of youth from England for the sake of children, but because I presided their sessions, and in this subject particularly I participated more than anybody else, so I approve of it as a true representative of Ahmadiyya viewpoint in this regard. Okay. Now, although it was addressed to children, yet it also answers the questions of the adults in the same area. So you better read it, because I have so far inquired, and the response of those who were skeptical is very favorable. They think that this book is satisfying to a degree. As far as the belief in God is concerned, it requires more than a logical answer, of course.
Yeah, that was my answer to him, that it's purely subjective, but I just wanted an objective.
No, it's not purely subjective. I don't agree with that. There are objective answers.
That's what
absolutely roundly convincing, but they require more time. Are you a scientist?
Well, I'm a doctor.
Sort of.
I'm a doctor.
A doctor?
Yeah.
A doctor of what?
Medicine.
Okay. Then you know the construction of the eye, don't you? Something of it.
Well, I don't want to be trapped with that answer question.
No. It's not an attempt to trap you. No. It's an attempt to help you.
No, I understand. Like, every day I marvel at human body.
No, I'm not talking of the body in general.
Yeah.
I'm talking just of the eye. Mm-hmm. And the mechanism of seeing.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, and I appreciate it. It's very extensive.
Can you relate the construction of eye to the process of evolution? And can you answer all the questions arising out of the study of eye, which the evolutionists have to answer? The construction of the ball itself, how complicated it is, the creation of the retina, of the rods and cones, and the transfer of the message in pulse form through a cord to a center back in the brain for it to decipher the message. Now, will it happen in stages? This is my question. The question is very simple. This one is really simple. I'm not asking you to explain in detail to these laymen all the complexities of which go with the subject. I'm just inquiring this simple question: can you conceive of a plan whereby the whole machinery could be built by chance steps, one after the other? Only this question.
The way I've been taught theoretically, and I see it happening practically, that there's a biochemistry involved.
I know biochemistry is involved, but even all the knowledge of biochemistry put together can still not answer this question which I am asking you. Can you conceive of a biological plan whereby by chance, in so many steps, the eyeball could be built piece by piece, while every piece was functionless until the eyeball was completed? And while the eyeball was completed step by step, what remained to be built was the cord, which could transfer the message of the retina back to somewhere. And also simultaneously, an evolution must take place in mind without any apparent purpose, whereby a portion of the brain would be trained and will be capable of deciphering the message conveyed to it through some pulses in the cord. This is the question.
Actually,
why do you avoid it?
No, I'm not avoiding. I'm trying to understand the question for my own benefit. And
Step by step. Now, if you say it is possible, let me inform you that I have read on this subject. And all the people who believe in evolution admit defeat in this issue. They say no attempt has been successful, not only in explaining the making of the eyeball, but also of all the other organs as well. All organs become inexplicable. Even the small red cell, you take it as a small dot, insignificant dot, while each red cell is composed of 4 valves, and each has different energy packs in each cell, each part of the cell I mean, and the energy is drained from one part and then it is refilled while it is drained from the other, and the process goes on without the red cell dying. Now, no scientist so far has conceived of a theory of evolution by which they could say by accident only one part of the red cell was created, and through any biochemical interactions the second part had to be created.
Can I interrupt, sir?
Yes, please.
I understand what you're pointing at. And again, my question is, the biologist has a subjective opinion of the extent of human body and cell. The physicist has a subjective experience about the atom and its substructure.
Not subjective, objective.
No, of course,
Please.
The knowledge is objective, but the faith and how these complexities come together to make life is subjective.
There is nothing subjective in scientific studies. It is in philosophy. The subjective is a term only applicable to philosophy. In science, it has to be objective experience which is demonstrable to others. Otherwise, it's not science you're talking about.
That's what I was pointing to. Like my subjective experience that I get awed by the structure of eye, it will be purely subjective, so I can believe in God through that mechanism.
No, I'm not talking of subjective experience at all. You have misunderstood me again. I'm talking of objective experiences alone. The scientists who remain confined to the objective studies of nature, that is why it can be demonstrated to others. An experiment which is not repeatable is not scientific experiment. So they have to confine their study entirely to objective study, not to the subjective. They leave it to the philosophers. Objectively, evolution has attempted to resolve many a problem of development of species. But objectively, problems relating to the organs of a single species have not been resolved and cannot be resolved, and there they accept the defeat. You know, you are talking of Darwin days. Much has happened since that time. The science of cellular study has not yet come to be born. So the simple naive thought of chilly weather playing a role in developing certain type of animals and hot weather playing a role in developing certain other factors or characters is no longer considered valid, because the cellular changes which are required to take place to correspond to the outer effects are so complicated that the simple cold spell or a spell of heat does not and cannot create those cellular changes